There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes he's been replaced, and I don't mean in the boardroom, or on the basketball team, or even at his own birthday party. I mean in the eyes of the one person who swore never to look elsewhere. That moment came for me on a Wednesday. Of course it did. Nothing traumatic ever happens on a weekend. Too convenient. I had just gotten home from work. Shoes off. Loafers lined up like soldiers. I was reaching for the remote when my wife, Melanie, called from the kitchen, "Can you grab the mail?" It sounded innocent, like everything else did. I opened the mailbox, expecting bills and junk. What I found instead was a sleek, gold-embossed envelope addressed to her. No return address, but it smelled faintly of champagne and audacity. Inside, an invitation. A party. At a cabin. Hosted by someone named Jordan. Elegant attire suggested. I walked back inside, handed her the envelope. "This yours?" She barely glanced up from slicing cucumbers. "Yeah, just a client thing." "Client thing with dress codes now?" She smiled. Thin. Mechanical. "You wouldn't understand. It's a marketing world." That sentence stuck with me longer than it had any right to. We ate dinner in silence. I chewed the way I imagine prisoners do their final meals methodically, without tasting. Halfway through, she said it. Calm. Detached. Like it was weather. "He told me I laugh more when I'm not with you." I didn't throw my fork. Didn't break the plate. I just said, "Who's he?" She didn't answer. She just went back to her cucumbers. That night, I lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling like it might spell out an answer. Melanie was next to me, scrolling through her phone, the glow of the screen painting her face in artificial indifference. I turned to her. "This client of yours," I said, voice level, "is he the reason you laugh more?" She didn't look up. Just said, "Don't be dramatic." "You said it, not me." She sighed. Long. The kind of exhale you hear from someone tired of pretending. "We're in a rut. That's all." Funny. Most people in a rut don't send invitations to elegant parties. Most people in a rut don't wear new perfume to client events. She fell asleep before me. Or pretended to. I listened to her breathing and wondered if she'd practiced it. That soft, even rhythm. Practiced silence. Practiced lies. The next morning, she left early. Hair curled. Earrings new. Confidence too loud for 7:15 a.m. "I'll be back late," she said, not even glancing at me. Team building dinner. With Jordan, I assumed. After she left, I checked our shared calendar on the hallway wall. The party was this weekend. Saturday. Cabin retreat. Nothing else marked. Just that one golden square around the date. I made a decision. I called my buddy Darren, the kind of friend who never asks too many questions but always shows up with a shovel if needed. "Still got that drone?" "Yeah," he said. "You going hunting?" Something like that. I wasn't chasing deer. I was chasing the truth. Darren dropped the drone off Friday evening, tossed me a six-pack like he was helping me build IKEA furniture instead of prepping for emotional war. He didn't ask why I needed aerial surveillance. He just said, "Don't crash it." I need it back by Sunday. "Hopefully before then," I said. "Depends on what I see." He gave me a look. Not pity. Not concern. Just that quiet, man-to-man acknowledgement that something was about to get ugly. Saturday came like an overdue letter bomb. Melanie left just before noon. Sundress. Heels she hadn't worn since our anniversary in Charleston. That was almost 2 years ago. No jacket. I asked, watching her grab the car keys. She didn't even flinch. "It'll be warm enough." She didn't kiss me goodbye. I waited an hour. Then I drove. The address on the invitation was in the hills, one of those secluded but expensive airbnbs that looks rustic on the outside and smells like lavender essential oil and tech money inside. I parked half a mile down the road and hiked up through the trees. Launched the drone from a clearing. What I saw made my stomach do a full spin cycle. There she was, my wife, standing next to a man I'd never met, but already hated. Tall. Confident. In that effortless, ski lodge kind of way. His hand brushed her lower back like it had a passport. And she laughed. Not chuckled. Laughed. A real one. The kind I hadn't heard in months. They clinked glasses. Someone made a toast. People cheered. And I recorded every second of it from 150 feet above their lies. The drone hovered steady, the camera panning across the sun-drenched deck like it was filming a promotional video for infidelity. I watched from my phone screen, hidden in the woods, crouched low with a backpack full of snacks and a thermos I never touched. Melanie was wearing that sea green dress, the one I'd bought her after a fight, back when gifts still felt like apologies instead of bribes. She'd never worn it for me. But now here she was, twirling a wine glass and smiling up at Captain Colgate teeth like he'd solved her. I zoomed in. No ring. Her left hand was bare. Of course it was. They walked inside the cabin together, shoulder to shoulder, her head tilting toward his like she was listening to something funny. That tilt used to be mine. The tilt that meant you had her full attention. Not the nod she gave clients. The real one. I kept recording. For an hour, I circled the drone at a safe distance, catching glimpses through the windows, her laughing, leaning on him, a moment when he brushed hair off her face. Then they disappeared into the bedroom. Door shut. I landed the drone, packed it up, and sat back against the trunk of an old pine tree, feeling older than I had in years. I wasn't heartbroken. That would imply I still had expectations. I was just done. Completely, devastatingly done. There's a strange peace that comes when the last illusion shatters. When you stop defending the person they used to be because the person they are now won't stop proving you wrong. I stayed there until the sun started sinking. Then I walked back to my car, the gravel crunching under my boots, each step saying the same word. Enough. I drove straight to Darren's garage. He was waxing his motorcycle and drinking orange soda like it was an Olympic sport. You get what you need? He asked, not looking up. More than enough. He nodded. Want to talk about it? Nope. Beer. Yes. He cracked one open, handed it over. We didn't speak much. Just the occasional sound of a bottle cap hitting the concrete. He knew I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. That it wasn't about the cheating. Not really. It was about being lied to for so long, so convincingly, that I started to believe I was the crazy one for feeling her absence even while she sat beside me. Back home, the silence was thicker than usual. It didn't feel like waiting. It felt like contempt. Even the furniture seemed to resent me for staying so long. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and uploaded the drone footage. I didn't post it anywhere. Not yet. Just saved it. Filed it under a folder titled, Truth, Final Cut. Then I made a plan. Not a rage plan. Not a burn her life down plan. Something worse. I started small. First, I pulled my name off the lease. Easy enough. The place had always been in her name. Technically, something she'd insisted on back when we were pretending to be modern and independent and not just laying the groundwork for separation. Then I cleared out my half of the joint savings. Legally, it was still mine. I left her the vacation fund. Figured she'd need it for another getaway. Next, I contacted an old friend from college, Marcus. He ran a printing business now, mostly labels and stickers for boutique candle brands. But he owed me for covering rent that semester. He chased a DJ career. I asked for one thing, a set of invitations. He didn't ask questions, just said, classy paper or ironic? Ironic. 2 days later, a box showed up at Darren's place. Inside, 50 crisp, embossed invitations with gold foil lettering and a handwritten style font. You're invited to the grand opening of The Truth. Location, our house. Saturday, 8 p.m. Dress code, honest. I mailed them out personally. Friends, family, co-workers. Even her sister Lorna, the one who always looked at me like I was made of cardboard. Then I waited. Melanie returned Sunday night. She breezed in, cheeks flushed, eyes sparkling like she'd been skiing on serotonin. I was sitting on the couch. Hey, she said, tossing her bag down. You okay? I stared at her. I will be. She looked at me like I was a puzzle she forgot how to solve. What's that supposed to mean? I mean, the part where you lie is over. You don't have to anymore. She squinted, confused. What are you talking about? I nodded toward her purse. Jordan texted you about the drone footage yet? Her face lost color. Slight twitch in the left eye. She was scrambling internally, calculating. Deny or confess? She chose poorly. You're being paranoid again. I handed her the invitation. You've got a week. Better find something honest to wear. Melanie didn't speak. Not for a full minute. She just stared at the invitation like it might morph into something forgivable. I watched her eyebrows twitch in micro-calculations. First confusion, then realization, then that slow-brewing storm of arrogance she always used when cornered. This is what? Some kind of joke? She finally asked. Not even close, I said, voice calm. Too calm, probably. She scoffed. You're throwing a party? To air our dirty laundry? What is this, a reality show? No, Mel. This is just the season finale. She dropped the invitation on the table like it was radioactive. You're insane. Maybe, I said. But at least I'm not dishonest. That shut her up. For a while. The rest of the week passed in careful silences. We moved around the house like ghosts, dodging one another's footsteps. She tried twice to talk, which really meant damage control. I told her I was busy. With the guest list. With the drinks. With the final details. And I was. I set everything up meticulously. Catered snacks. A slideshow. Background music. Even a welcome sign. Thanks for coming. Let's get honest. Darren helped string up fairy lights in the backyard. I'd never seen him so giddy. Feels like prom, he joked. Only this time, we exposed the cheaters. Saturday night came faster than I expected. At 7:59 p.m., the first knock sounded. Lorna. Eyebrows raised, expression wary. I thought this was a joke, she whispered as I took her coat. Nope, I replied. But you're just in time. People filtered in friends, cousins, neighbors who always liked me more than Melanie. Even our old couple friends, the ones who hadn't invited us to their last dinner party because, in their words, Melanie's been weird lately. The air buzzed with curiosity. I offered drinks. Played the role of polite host. The kind of man no one expects to detonate a room. At 8:17, Melanie appeared. She wore black. Always her power color. Minimal makeup, hair down, lips pursed in that "I'm fine" line she wore like armor. She glanced around, nodded at people, and gave me a look that could have melted paint. I returned it with a smile. When the living room was comfortably full, I stepped up to the projector. Cleared my throat. People turned. Drinks paused mid-sip. Thanks for coming, I said. Some of you may be wondering what this is. Why the invite said what it did. Well, it's simple. Tonight's about the truth. And for once, I'm not the only one finding it out. Melanie stood, already moving toward me. Elbert, don't. But I'd rehearsed this. Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to throw anything. I'm not even going to curse. I clicked the remote. The screen lit up with the first image. Melanie. Sea green dress. Glass in hand. Laughing at Jordan like he hung the moon. A few polite gasps echoed around the room. Next image. His hand on her waist. Then video. Drone footage. Slow pan over the cabin, zooming into the two of them standing too close. She lunged for the remote. I stepped aside. You said it was a client thing, I said, loud enough for the back row. You told me you were reconnecting with your team. She froze. People stared. Melanie, I continued, still steady, this isn't just about cheating. It's about performance. You've turned our marriage into a stage and me into the prop. So tonight, I'm giving the audience the curtain call. Lorna looked like she might be sick. One of Melanie's coworkers mouthed, "Oh my God." Melanie stood there, breathing shallow. Cornered. Someone said, "Is this real?" She tried to gather herself, arms folding, voice trembling. This is an ambush. A setup. No, I said, this is clarity. I turned off the projector. That's all. There's no big speech. No vengeance. I just wanted you to see it. See her. Not the version from Instagram or dinner parties. The real one. I walked away from the stunned crowd, out to the porch, where Darren already had a cold beer waiting. You're a cold son of a gun, he said. I took the bottle. Colder than her? He shook his head. Not even close. Inside, I heard voices. Some people defending her. Some not. Someone mentioned annulment. Someone else asked about legal separation. I didn't care. I just sat back, sipped my drink, and for the first time in months, felt like myself. Not broken. Not abandoned. Just free. Sunday morning arrived without apology. I woke up on the couch, not because I'd been kicked there, but because I couldn't stomach sleeping in the same bed that still smelled like her shampoo. I lay staring at the ceiling for a full hour, not thinking, just existing. Funny how silence has its own gravity when it's finally yours again. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The kind where someone's absence makes more noise than their presence ever did. Melanie was gone. No note. No confrontation. No passive-aggressive glass clinking in the kitchen. Just absence. A clean, decisive silence. I didn't check my phone for messages. Didn't care. If she was expecting an apology or some post-explosion olive branch, she'd have better luck shaking hands with a statue. Around noon, Darren dropped by with coffee and the kind of grin you wear after watching someone drop the mic and walk off stage without flinching. You sleep? He asked. I existed, I said, sipping the coffee. That's a start. We didn't say much for a while. He played something soft on the speakers, Fleetwood Mac, I think, and we sat in the backyard like retirees, watching squirrels argue over nothing. Eventually, he asked, "What's next?" It was a fair question. I had no plan beyond last night. That had been the climax, the reckoning. Everything after? Fog. I shrugged. She'll lawyer up, probably. Let her. She might try to spin it. She'll fail. And she would. Because this wasn't a scandal. It was a reveal. And no amount of PR-smoothed half-truths could change what people had seen. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. "You humiliated her. She's shattered." No name. But I had a good guess. Probably one of her wine night warriors. Someone who once thought I was such a sweet, quiet guy. Funny how those people go silent until their queen takes a hit, then suddenly find their voice again. I didn't respond. Another text followed. "You didn't have to go nuclear." I chuckled. Nuclear would have been tagging the video, publishing names, bringing her job into it. What I did? That was restraint wearing a collared shirt. Later that evening, I finally opened the bedroom door. Her side of the closet had been ransacked. Half the hangers were empty, drawers half closed. One of her stupid fluffy slippers lying sideways like it got in her way on the way out. Good. I found her wedding ring on the bathroom sink. Just sitting there. Not even in a dish. No note. No ceremony. Just metal and finality. I didn't pick it up. Didn't throw it either. Just stared at it for a long time, like it might blink or whisper or do something other than sit there in its polished, meaningless silence. I went downstairs, grabbed a box, and started packing her leftovers. Not angrily. Not hastily. Just practically. Books she never read. Beauty products that had their own shelf despite never getting used. The robe she wore only when she was on a self-care kick. Each item went into the box like a sentence being crossed out. A history getting footnoted, then erased. By 10 p.m., the guest room was full of her stuff. I texted her. "Your things are boxed. Pick up whenever." She replied within a minute. "Can we talk?" Now she wanted to talk. "No," I typed. Then I deleted it. Too simple. Too kind. I settled on. "You talked for months." I just finally listened. No reply. Perfect. Monday, I went back to work. Routine felt like medicine. Emails. Meetings. Colleagues asking, "You okay?" with that tone that meant they already knew the answer but wanted to hear your version anyway. "I'm good," I said. It was almost true. By Wednesday, the gossip had died down. Her side of the story wasn't sticking. Apparently, telling people your husband exposed your affair in front of 25 people loses some sympathy when you leave out the part where you were, in fact, having the affair. By Friday, I had a lawyer. His name was Charles. Firm handshake. Dead eyes. The kind of man who's seen every flavor of betrayal and stopped flinching decades ago. "She's not contesting the divorce," he said after our first meeting. "No kids, no shared debt. This will be quick." "Good," I said. He slid a document across the table. "Only thing she's asked for is to keep the guest house keys. She says she wants to retreat and reflect." I laughed. Loudly. "She can reflect in a motel." He nodded, as if expecting that. We wrapped up in under 30 minutes. Efficiency, like everything else she hated about me, was finally working in my favor. Saturday came again. 1 week since the party. I stood in the living room, looking at the space where the projector used to sit. The screen was gone. The chairs had been moved back. Everything looked normal again. Except me. I wasn't normal anymore. I was clear. I was alone, and finally, thankfully, not lonely. It's strange how quickly life reconfigures once you subtract a lie. Like rearranging furniture in a room you'd always thought was too cramped, then realizing it was just crowded with things that didn't belong. I spent the next few weeks cleaning. Not out of grief. Not out of boredom. Just instinct. Purge mode. Like I'd walked through fire, and now everything that smelled like smoke had to go. Her scented candles. Gone. The throw pillows she bought after watching one HGTV episode. Donated. Even her playlist, some upbeat mix of faux empowerment and indie sadness, got deleted from the Bluetooth system. For the first time in years, I heard silence. And it sounded honest. Darren dropped by most evenings. He didn't say much, just watched football and cracked beers like emotional support was something you poured, not said. That was fine by me. Words had gotten cheap. "One night," he said, "you think you'll date again?" I paused. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." He nodded like he understood. "Just don't let this turn you bitter, man." I smiled. Not bitter. Just recalibrated. And I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. I wasn't even hurt. The hurt had dried up somewhere between the drone flight and the lawyer's office. What I felt now was distance. A cool, clear kind of distance that let you see things for what they really were. Melanie wasn't evil. She was just addicted to admiration, and I had become too familiar to admire. I could have hated her for that. Some people would have. But to be honest, it felt like trying to hate gravity. You can curse it, but it's still going to pull. What I did hate, quietly, fiercely, was the version of me who tolerated it. The man who watched the sparkle fade from his wife's eyes and blamed himself for not being shinier. So I started rebuilding. Not the house. Not my wardrobe. Not a dating profile. Me. I called my brother, whom I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. We used to be close until life did its usual trick of layering bills and obligations over the phone calls. We talked for an hour. Laughed. Made plans to meet up for a hike, something we hadn't done since our 20s. I read books I'd bought and shelved. Ran 3 miles for the first time in a year. Picked up my guitar again, strings rusty, fingers worse, but it still sounded like mine. On a whim, I painted the living room. Blue. A deep, stormy blue. Melanie had always said it was too dark. Said it would make the space feel smaller. I looked around once the paint dried, sipped my coffee, and smiled. Smaller? No. It felt deeper. More honest. Like walking into thought instead of pretense. 2 weeks after the party, a letter arrived. No return address. Handwritten. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but the moment I opened it, I knew. Melanie. I thought I'd feel better after walking away. I thought you'd snap, or beg, or at least rage. Instead, you were silent. Strategic. Surgical. I've been asked by 5 people if I'm okay. The truth is, I'm not. Not because of what you did, but because of what I lost without noticing. I read the letter 3 times. No apologies. No admissions. Just that soft, vague remorse people offer when they don't know how to be accountable. I folded it and placed it in a drawer I didn't use often. It wasn't that I needed to keep it. I just couldn't bring myself to toss it. Not yet. The next morning, I received another text from her. Can we talk? Just once. Not to fight. Just to talk. I stared at it. Then typed back. You've already said everything. I just finally heard you. No reply. Perfect. That weekend, Darren convinced me to join him at a friend's barbecue. One of those grown-up but still pretending to be cool kind of things, fairy lights, acoustic music, artisan burgers. I kept to myself mostly. Played polite. Until someone asked what I did, where I lived, if I had a family. It felt like a test. I'm in between stories, I said. They laughed. Not at me. With me. Later, a woman named Claire struck up a conversation. She wore a denim jacket and had a smile that didn't apologize for taking up space. You always this quiet? She asked. Only when I'm thinking too loud. She raised an eyebrow. Thinking about what? I paused. Then smiled. Rewrites. She laughed. Real, unfiltered. The kind I hadn't heard in a while. We didn't exchange numbers. Didn't flirt. Just talked. But when I left that night, I realized I'd finally crossed the threshold. Not into something new, but out of something old. And that? That was enough for now. A month passed. The divorce paperwork came through without ceremony. A single manila envelope slid through the mail slot like it hadn't just sliced the last thread of a 22-year story. I opened it at the kitchen counter, skimmed the pages, signed where Charles told me to, and stuck it back in the prepaid envelope. No champagne. No tears. Just closure delivered in courier font. I texted Darren. It's done. He replied with a gif of a phoenix rising from flames and a pizza emoji. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. No dreams. No waking up at 3 a.m. to stare at the ceiling and wonder when things went cold. Just rest. In the weeks that followed, I settled into something I hadn't felt since before marriage, quiet identity. I was no longer half of a performance. No longer the husband with the checklist or the guy who made dinner for someone scrolling through someone else's life. I was just me. And oddly enough, I liked the guy. I started volunteering on Saturdays at a local veterans center. Not because I needed charity points, but because I needed people who knew about battlefields that weren't always literal. Some of those guys had seen real war. And still, you could see it in their eyes when you spoke about emotional wounds. They understood. They never asked, what happened? They asked, you healing? Yeah. Slowly. Steadily. One Saturday, I walked into a used bookstore on Main Street. Hadn't been inside since Melanie declared it too dusty for her allergies. It still smelled like old paper and forgotten ideas. I wandered the aisles until I found a copy of East of Eden with frayed corners and a folded page near the middle. I opened it. There was a note inside. Don't look for yourself in someone who never bothered to see you. Handwritten. No signature. Just truth, wedged between Steinbeck's melancholy and hope. I bought the book without asking questions. That night, I placed it on my new bookshelf, the one she'd always said we didn't need because we have a Kindle for that. Melanie called once after the papers finalized. I didn't pick up. Let it go to voicemail. Her message was short. Just wanted to say I hope you're okay. I'm trying to be. Goodbye. That was the first time she didn't ask for anything. No conversation. No explanation. Just a breath of truth. Too late to matter, but appreciated nonetheless. Weeks turned into a season. The trees started shedding what they no longer needed. So did I. I wasn't planning to see Claire again, the woman from the barbecue. But life has a sense of humor, and it came in the shape of a Sunday flea market. I was standing at a booth flipping through old vinyl records when she stepped beside me, holding a half-eaten funnel cake and a skeptical smile. You don't strike me as a Bee Gees guy, she said. I held up the record. I'm just here for the heartbreak. Staying alive is ironic. She laughed. You always this charming at 10 a.m.? I shrugged. Only when confronted with powdered sugar and disco. We talked, walked, laughed, the kind of laugh that doesn't echo pain. The kind that says, this doesn't have to lead anywhere. It just needs to feel real. I didn't ask her out. She didn't ask me in. But we exchanged numbers. Just in case. We texted. Light stuff. Music. Books. The weird things you notice when no one's watching. One night, she sent a message. You seem steady. Were you always like that? I typed back. No. But I got shattered. And when I put myself back together, I left out the parts that didn't belong. She didn't reply right away. Then, that's the most honest thing I've read all week. We didn't rush into anything. No romantic montage. Just two people walking parallel for a while, occasionally sharing the same bench and watching the same sunsets with different baggage. But it felt different. Not perfect. Just human. On the anniversary of the day, I found the drone footage, the real start of the end. I drove to the cabin. Not to confront anyone. Not to reopen wounds. Just to stand where it all cracked and realize I wasn't broken anymore. The trees still stood. The gravel still crunched. The cabin was probably rented to some influencer couple now, snapping fake candid shots by the fire pit. I stood on the overlook, the same spot where I'd piloted a camera to record a betrayal. But now, I looked with my own eyes. Nothing to record. Nothing to prove. Melanie was a past tense. Not a wound. Not a villain. Just a woman who chose someone else when she couldn't find herself. And me? I chose to keep going. I stood there for an hour. Breathing. Thinking. Thanking the pain that forced me to build a better self from the rubble. Before I left, I took the folded page from East of Eden, the one with the handwritten message, and tucked it into the railing of the overlook. Let the next person find it. Let someone else feel seen. And as I walked back to my truck, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Which is better.